Hello everyone, Ember Power here, and welcome back to this set review. So, all 100 cards from Lost Abyss was fully revealed yesterday, today, but this morning. So I thought we'd go over them. This is a set that's going to reintroduce the Lost Zone back into the standard format, and it will combine with another mini set called Dark Phantasma that was revealed several weeks ago. Well, more like a month and a half, but several weeks, and that will form Lost Origin. So yeah, two very close, similar names, but Lost Origin is like the main set that will feature most of the cards in this set, and then most of the cards from Dark Phantasma, and that will release in September in English. So hopefully not a too long of a video. There is a lot to talk about, so we'll just kind of get into it. If you have any thoughts, queries, questions, or the rest of it, obviously feel free to let me know in the comment section. So starting things off, Venomoth is pretty underwhelming, unfortunately, for the coin of heads. You can choose a special condition. Yeah, pretty underwhelming. Free retreat is always nice, though. A Sunriken is cute, but 40 HP is obviously extremely bad in an Inteleon-themed meta. Sunflower with a Brilliant Beam attack. Have 2 colors, does 10 damage, and then you may discard up to 3 energy cards in your hand, doing 70 more for each card discarded in this way. So you can actually do up to 220 damage for 2 colors. Twin energy, double turbo energy comes to mind, but obviously if you're needing to discard energy cards from your hand anyway, you might not want to play high counts of, just twin turbo. So it might be a case of maybe this is good in a Charm deck. So like you build it with Charm and like Bibarel and all those other kind of Charm style attackers. That could be okay. But otherwise, a pretty fun card actually. It could make a cool budget deck out of standard for this one. So it's quite cool. Good news for content creators like me who love budget. So that's cool. C dot 50 HP again is unfortunate, but the artwork is nice. I do appreciate the clay artwork. Nuzleaf is pretty bad, but it's to be expected on evolving stage 1. Shiftry, one of the many stage 2s in this set, and believe me, there is a lot. Shiftry has a really cool attack, Winds of Defeat, that does 210 damage, but you have to put Shiftry and all the cards attached to it into a Lost Zone. So the Lost Zone, just for those of you who need a recap, is a sort of a Shadow Realm-like area in the TCG in your game, whereby cards that go to Lost Zone, they're not coming back. So it's not like the discard pile where there's, synergy with Rescue Carrier and, Battle Compressor, VS Seeker, all those kind of cards. If something goes in the Lost Zone, it ain't coming back. And as we'll see with cards later on, there is actually a lot of really busted, broken effects that can come from having a ton of cards in Lost Zone. So there is potentially a world where you have a Shiftry kind of engine as such, and then you just do randomly 210 out of nowhere, and maybe even 240 with a Choice Belt, unless you're sending Choice Belt and a Stage 2 Shiftry and, all the other guys back into the Lost Zone. So it could be something. I just think it's a lot of work in the early game for Lost Zone deck. I know, as we'll see with the archetypes, you don't actually need to have, Shiftries all throughout the game. It's not like you're trying to recycle Shiftry turn after turn. But Winds of Defeat, it is on a stage 2, so you have to keep in mind. But it does do an awful lot of damage. So Fungus Amoongus does absolutely nothing, and again has 50 HP, but I love that artwork. It's very Studio Ghibli-esque, I would say, if you know what that is. I think it's pretty cool. Amoongus Fungus has the abruptly named Prank Spores, so I think they knew exactly what they were doing with this. Can't believe it. But whenever this card is discarded by the hand by the effect of an opponent's Pokemon's attacks or abilities, or by the effect of an opponent's item card or supporter, so basically if they just discard this card from your hand with anything they have, discard all cards from your opponent's hand. Very situational. I can think of very few cards that actually disrupt your hand. I think there's a Mimikyu VMAX actually that discards a card from your hand. So if that sees play with the new Mimikyu we're going to talk about later, then this could be a funny counter. It's very just well, you're going to discard a Moongus from my hand. Well, stuff you. You can discard your hand as well. It's just like, it's so random, honestly. It is very random. The cool ability. Durant has some pretty cool artwork. Energy Digging is unfortunately just absolute bulk because Search Your Deck crypts 2 basic energy cards. Obviously, if this was like attached 2 basic energy cards, or even just Search Your Deck for basic energy, attach it, and then do like 40 damage, but it doesn't even do chip damage, which I think it's a missed opportunity for a card like Durant. But unfortunate. But what can you do? Phantom is bulk, but happy to see another Trevenant line standard. I always have like had a thing about Trevenant. He's easily in my top 10 list of favorite Pokemon, him and Chandelure. So quite happy that Trevenant has made it back into the TCG once again after disappointing VMAX. But the ability, Ultra Barrier, is pretty cool. It says if his Pokemon is knocked out by damage from opponent's Vs, they don't take a prize. So this is pretty cool for a number of reasons. It's not quite Miltank because obviously you're not protected from damage. And if you're not protected from damage, that means every time your opponent knocks out a Trev, I mean, they can just knock out a Trev every turn basically, and you have to keep recycling Trevenants. You have to keep, powering up a new guy, an attacker. But like we said with Sunflora, I think this is a really cool charm partner because Giga Impact actually does a respectable 150. I know you can't attack during your next turn, but really, who gives a stuff about that because you're 120, so you're going to die anyway. And so the 150 can obviously chain into 300 if you have another Trevenant going next turn. Is for 3 energy, is on a stage 1. You'll have to run Charm, probably a Bibarel, so it's like 3 stage 1s or something daft, but I think this could be really funny. There's a quad deck with Gardenia, that's also an option, but I don't have as much faith in that build. But, fun card, and the artwork is cool, so coolio. Again, continuing the trend of amazing artwork as the Ninetales and Vulpix. I think this is like the Ninetales actually won a drawing contest as well, as far as I'm aware. But pretty cool card. Unfortunately, has 2 pretty bad attacks, which make it bulk. Slugma, again, amazing artwork. So happy Macargo is coming back again on my top 10 favorite Pokemon. Abyssal Volcano, though, a very cool attack name, does 220 damage, but you have to put all energy attaches Pokemon in the Lost Zone. It's a fine effect, but how are you getting 3 energy on Macargo in the first place? We have Raihan, we have Basin, but we don't really have any other options besides that, so yeah, unfortunately, I don't think Macargo is very good. Hopefully, we'll see some kind of additional acceleration in the future, but Macargo is unfortunately pretty bad. Delphox V is pretty interesting, has a spooky torture attack that says your opponent's active Pokemon is now burned and confused. I mean, yeah, whatever. But Magical Fire for 2 Fire and a Colors does 120, and then you put 2 energy from this guy into the Lost Zone, and it also does 120 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So I think I will do a separate video just talking about all the Lost Zone Pokemon together because I think that makes more sense because it's kind of hard to analyze the synergy when there's so much in one of these videos to talk about it and remember it all. But I think this 120 and then 120 Snipe, even with Manaphy around, is still worth it. I think it sets up enough damage. It can take out Inteleons and stuff like that. Well, Drizzile. So I think this is honestly a really good attack. Where I can see it being good is that you have cards like Raihan, Magma Basin. There's an upcoming item that can accelerate energy in the late game. So, yeah, I think Delphox V is actually not that bad. Maybe I'm biased because I love Delphox so much, but yeah, I think it's pretty cool. Fletchinder is boring. Fletchling is not here because he's a colorless type. Just thought I'd point that out in case you're wondering where's Fletchling. But yeah, Fletchling is in the set. He's just later on. Talonflame has a quick dive attack that's 50 snipe. That's fine. And then Ruthless Strike does 80, and then if you have any damage counters, does 80 more. So extremely reminiscent of the Obstagoon from Fusion Strike that did, I think it was the exact same amount of damage. It might have been for 150 or 170, but it was around that kind of 150, 160 number, And Obstagoon did actually see a whole bunch of play, but I think Obstagoon's actually underrated, but Obstagoon hasn't done a whole lot recently, and that doesn't give me a lot of faith for this Talonflame. Even though Obstagoon has like Sword and Shield one that can place damage counters, which is obviously really good for this attack, and it also can wall out basic Pokemon, and then it naturally has like the 4 copies of Zigzagoon and the Inteleon Scoopnet engine already built into it. Whereas this Talonflame, you're going to have to use Magma Basin and stuff, and if it was this Pokemon has any damage counters, I'd be a bit more interested because obviously you could Magma Basin to something like a Fletchinder or to Talonflame. Maybe you could Raihan. I don't know. I think it's cool, but it's unfortunate. So Seal is adorable. Dugong has a swim freely attack. I will just scroll down quickly to Finian that has this ability to support, and I will go back to Dugong, don't worry. Finian says, as often as you like during a turn, you may attach a warranty card from your hand to one of your Pokemon that has swim freely. So the Luminion has a swim freely move, but it's really bad, so it just does 120. So this is essentially a Frostmoth, but a basic Pokemon if you haven't got the gist of it. But there's a couple of Pokemon that do have swim freely, and Dugong is one of them. So it has the attack Arctic Return that for a twin, a double turbo, or just basic water energies, we'll see with its attack cost. Says shuffle any number of water energy from your Pokemon into your deck, and it does 40 damage for each one. So immediately I kind of thought, oh, this is pretty bad. And then I realized, oh wait, we have Swim Freely, and then we have like Nessa to get back stuff. Well, that's the discard pile, but like if if they knock out a Dugong that has 2 energy, you can actually just Nessa, pick it all back up, and do it again. So I think that's kind of cool. I do like the whole idea that this is kind of scaling with Malamar numbers, and Malamar has been pretty good ever since its debut. So I do like the idea of this being a thing in Standard. Unfortunately, only having 120 HP and Finion only having 50 means you're going to get obliterated by like Urshi and Talion, stuff like that. But honestly, not a bad rogue deck. I don't think it could end up being pretty bad. I mean, everyone like doubted the Regigigas deck, and then look what happened. So I don't think Dugong's worth writing off just yet. Horsea is fine, but I think we have a 60 HP one in Standard already. Seadra has Swim Freely, which is cool because it means we can use Hydro Shot. So that attack does 20 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon for each 1 energy attached to this Pokemon. So we can swim freely like 5 energy and then snipe for 100. I mean, it's all right. It's not the best. There is definitely better cards you could use. What I will say with this is I wouldn't actually play Seadra in the Dugong deck. I wouldn't bother. I think it's too clunky to run 2 different stage 1s, as well as Finion and a Draw Engine. I think it's too much for one deck. However, where I think the Seadra is actually really good is with this Kingdra and the other Kingdra and Battle Styles. So this Kingdra says, once during your turn, you can choose either you or your opponent, and then it's a shuffle, draw 4. So it's a judge, but you only choose one player. This is really cool because obviously there'll be a lot of games where you're like, oh, I've played my abilities for turn, I've played my Cincinos, I've played my research, I still haven't found the final piece in the puzzle. I'm going to use Surging Current, and I'm going to, shuffle draw 4. And yeah, this Kingdra can't really attack. Like 130, yeah, fine, you can reach 160 with a Choice Spell, but it's still probably going to be a very much a secondary, even third tertiary attacker in your deck. Because I think what you kind of want to do is use Finion to accelerate energy to Seadra, and then evolve into the other Kingdra that does more damage for each energy attached to it, and it also retains the energy when a Kingdra is knocked out. So even if you put like 7 energy on Seadra and you have the other Kingdra in play, if that Seadra goes down, all 7 energy move to the other Kingdra. I know I'm spending a long time explaining this, but I just think it's worth pointing out because I think it's pretty cool, and hopefully, people experiment with it because this is a cool ability. I don't think it's enough to carry the deck into very cool territory. If this was maybe shuffle draw 5, I could maybe get behind it, sorry. But yeah, could be something cool. Whalmer and Wailord. I'll not make a joke about this, but I think it's pretty obvious that they didn't give them Swim Freely for a reason. Yeah, I think it's just Wailord's going to be sitting around, floating around. He ain't doing much swimming, basically. But Whalmer, 110 HP, very funny. Wailord has 200 HP. I love seeing Wailords. Man, this set, if it had Goomy in it, which fair enough, there is a Goodra in the next set, but if it had Goomy in it, this would arguably be the most of my favorite Pokemon has ever been in the set. I know this is like narcissistic, personal, whatever. I don't care. I love the fact that a lot of my favorite Pokemon are actually coming in this set, which is so cool. And Wailord. This is a playable Wailord, and we've not seen a playable Wailord in quite some time. So Oversized says this Pokemon takes 30 less damage from your opponent's Pokemon. Not just V's. Pokemon. All of them. They all do 30 less. So Wailord essentially has 230 HP. You slap a Big Charm, you have 260. Like, wow, that's really tanky. Then obviously Special Waves does 120, and his Pokemon has a Special Energy, and attack does 120 more. So obviously you want to try and use Frostmoth, and then either Capture Energy, which you're probably playing Frostmoth anyway, or a new card called Gift Energy that says when it's knocked out, you draw until you have 7 in your hand. So yeah, I'm going to say is, yeah, there's definitely a world where we can have a Wailord stall deck and maybe even a Wailord attack deck. I don't think the attack deck will be amazing. 240, even with a belt, so not a big charm, would be 270, which is still a little shy sometimes. You need a Zigzagoon. But yeah, well, it's pretty cool. Just running out of breath, catching my breath, talking about Wailord. I love Wailord. So cool. Moving on a bit. So Finion obviously talked about loads already. Luminion, I wouldn't run a single copy of Luminion. I think it's awful. Retreat cost of 4 is quite funny, only has retreat cost of 1. I would honestly say, yeah, they're kind of hinting that maybe you should use Waterfall to do 120. But honestly, at that point, I'd rather just actually attach loads of energy to Seadra, do loads of sniping, and then like attack with Hydro Splash because, yeah, 120 is just real bad. Karm V is really funny for a number of reasons, and I do want to point this out in a second. The first attack is actually really good if this ends up being a cool quad deck, which I think what will happen with Kyurem VMAX. I think it will be a quad deck. If it is, then Instant Freeze is obviously your go-to option going second, because you'll only obviously play like 4 Kyurem V and nothing else in terms of basic Pokemon. So just being able to accelerate a bunch of water energy is actually great synergy with your attack on the VMAX, which we'll talk about in a second. Frost Smash doing 140 is nothing. But I think it's really funny though, is that as far as I'm aware, this is one of the only ways of actually charging up energy to a Kyurem that came out in Evolving Skies, the Dragon type one, that does like an insane amount of damage, but it needs 2 waters and a metal, and you can't use Frostmoth because it's a Dragon type. Well, this guy can just accelerate to that guy, so I guess we have Kragonal, but Kragonal's obviously just really bad, so maybe Kyurem V with the other Kyurem. Could be a fun rogue deck. Anyway, moving on. Kyurem V Max. Probably should also mention these guys have weakness metal, which isn't too much of a problem really, I don't think. But anyway, Kyurem V Max on the tanky end with 330. Retreat cost of 3, pretty cringe, but we'll get by. Ice World ability, it says once in your turn you may discard the top card of your deck. If it's a water energy, attach it to one of your Pokemon. For those of you who are familiar with your boy Macargo GX, then you'll recognize his ability. It was pretty good back in the day. We did have a sort of Primate Wisdom like effect back then, and we still do now, so I think there is a lot of reasons to believe that this could be really good and strong. Max Frost does 120, and you discard any number of water, you do 50 more, so obviously discarding 1, you can do 170, that's fine. 2, you're doing 220, which is great. It means turn 2, if you can get this guy powered up, you can just 1EK an Evolving V. And then 3, you can do a whopping 270 with a Choice Spout with Zigzag and Ping. You can just knock out anything. Basically, with a Howlucha, you can also get to VMAX territory. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on this card. I think it's really good. It's got a lot of good stuff going for it. It's definitely a lot better than a lot of the other VMAXs that have been revealed recently. So, yeah, I think got a lot of good words. A lot of good going for it. Dewpider and Arachnoquid are bland as hell. Cramorant has the ability Loss Supply. It says if you have 4 more cards in Lost Zone, ignore all energy. So you can use Convenient Spit that no doesn't have the same move twice, but does 110 damage, and this attack isn't affected by weakness. So you can hit Heatran or Charizard Vstar for weakness, but let's be real here. They don't see that much play because of, Palkia or Unoroki. So what I think is cool about this guy is that he can end up being sort of an early game attacker in these kind of water style. Well, not exactly water style because you don't even have to play water energy, but like these lost zone boxes that want to like put loads of stuff in the lost zone. So yeah, could be really efficient. Glacier is cool. Cool to see this in card form, but unfortunately it is pretty much bulk. Chinchino is bland. Lantern is just bad. Play the Raichu from Evolving Skies. It has a much better stats overall. Rotom V is pretty interesting because there is a Rotom Vstar. I did talk about that in a video recently when I went over Zamazenta, Zacian, and Rotom Vstar. But essentially, Instant Generator says once your turn, you may draw 3. Use the ability, your turn ends. Cool ability to have in that deck, but unfortunately, this is obviously nowhere near the power level of Zacian. If this was, attach a lightning edge you find there as well, then maybe, but pretty bad otherwise. And then Scrappy Short Circuit is 40, and you may put any number of Pokemon tools from your discard pile into a Lost Zone and do 40 more for each card. Just catching my breath and thinking about how on earth this is going to be good. How? I guess you have Pachirisu. Pachirisu will obviously have loads of tools in play, so if you do some weird funky Pachirisu combo, maybe even with just Honchkrow, where you put loads of energy, or tool cards rather, on Honchkrow, and then you play Path to the Peak, and all those tool cards go to the discard pile or something weird, and then I don't know why I'm making excuses. I think this is a pretty bad card overall. There is some, like, fun, cool merits behind it, as Rotom should be fun cards, but, Yeah, I didn't know about that one. Emolga is bland. Lovely artwork, but it's bland. Dynamo is, again, lovely artwork, is bland. Noticing a theme here? Electric is bad. I don't remember the last time we had a good Electros, honestly. I don't think it was an Electros GX even, which is really sad. But Electros has a coil move, which are always really bad, and then Lively Current is just really bad. Someone in Creatures Inc. must really hate this evolution line. And I mean really hate it. Drowsy is, again, Psychic types honestly get some of the coolest artwork out there. But unfortunately, it's just bland. Hypno is kind of cool, allowing you to search your deck for up to 2 stage 1s. But the problem I have with this over running Zorak is this is a Psychic energy on a stage 1. And so your opponent could just boss around it. But I think we need to spend a hot second just appreciating that artwork. I mean, look at that. So pretty. It's just unfortunate that it's bad. So back to the interesting stuff. Sableye, Lost Mine for a single Psychic energy, says you can only use this attack if you have 10 or more cards in the Lost Zone. So quite a steep requirement. But if you do, or you can do, put 12 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. So obviously a really busted effect. We'll just have to see how effective getting cards into Lost Zone actually is, because this could end up being really strong. This could end up being really good. Hard to know how it relates to in maths. I mean, Cramorant does 110. This could take you up to 120. So that's like 230, which isn't really doing anything. You know, there will definitely be some situations where this is worth playing. And I'm pretty sure Giratina Vstar uses Psychic Energy anyway, and that synergizes with the Lost Zone. So it'll probably see playing Giratina. Basically, I think this is worth testing out with Giratina at least. So should be pretty cool. There's also a Mimikyu that does more damage for each damage counter on all your opponent's Pokemon. So yeah, I would definitely consider that as well. Banette is pretty cool. One of these Lost Zone cards as well, as you can tell by the strange arcana going around them that says, once in your turn, you may put Banette into the Lost Zone and then pick up a supporter card. So a pretty cool effect. Fortunately, you are putting stuff in the Lost Zone. So, well, not unfortunately. Well, I don't know. It depends. I think it's what will hold Burnett back, I think, from being just really good is if it hit because it's a stage 1. If this was like a basic and it said flip a coin, if I had to retrieve a supporter, you know, I think this could be pretty good. But other than that, I think it's pretty bad. Swirlix does 0 damage. Slurpuff does 0 damage. Comfrey says it has the ability of flower picking. It says once in your turn, this Pokemon is in the active spot. You may look at the top 2 cards of your deck and put one in your hand. Then put the other card into the Lost Zone. So this will obviously be a good partner for the sort of like Giratina, Turbo, Lost Zone attacking decks that want to just put loads of stuff in the Lost Zone in the early game. So yeah, that's kind of like the engine that they'll be operating with. Mimikyu is kind of cool. Has like this massive blow up move if the more damaged your opponent's Pokemon are. So I think this is cool in like a number of reasons. Definitely for stuff like Northern V, as well as, you know, other Pokemon. Well, spread attackers damage is really there's like I'm trying to think of more spread attackers. I think there's a Palo in the set that I saw earlier that spreads damage, but not too many ways. Oh yeah, Mimikyu VMAX actually, that spreads damage. So there's Mimikyu VMAX, there's like Sableye, Palo. There's a couple of applications for this. Could be okay. In DDV, is searching your deck for any one card, but it is pretty bad. Dreepy is cool artwork again, but sadly pretty bad. Dracolock is pretty bad. Dragapult is funny. Has the attack Dragon Launcher, very wordy, but essentially you can discard a bunch of Dreepy and do 100 damage for each one you discard. But there's a problem, because Dragapult will already be evolving from a Dreepy, and you will also need to have bench space for other draw engines like Inteleon, which is like your consistency, and then you'll also need to be doing like enough damage. You know, you don't need to basically recover Dreepies with rescue carriers and Nanofees around, and yeah, unfortunately, I think it's going to be pretty bad, but it's a shame because it is a good effect. Specteria has Night Steps. Choose 2 Pokemon, put 2 damage counters. That's alright, honestly. This might end up being like a one-off as like an anti-Miltank attacker. Could be okay. So Aerodactyl V, finally getting on some of the more juicier stuff. The V is fairly underwhelming, but at least has 210 HP. So kind of on the bigger end. Aerodactyl Vstar has 260, so a little bit less than what we're used to most of the time, but still pretty high. Better than 250, obviously. And it has the attack Lost Dive that for fighting in 2 colors does 240, and you can put the top 3 cards of your deck into the Lost Zone. So this will obviously be, I think, less of a synergy with the Lost Zone directly and more just a turbo option, right? Because 240 is a lot of damage, 270 with a belt, 280 with a Zigzagoon ping. So I think Lost Dive is kind of this aggro build of the Lost Zone, whereby you're, yeah, there's like an item I think in that you can have access to in the late game that's going to be able to accelerate energy as well if you have more than like 7 cards in a Lost Zone or something. So Lost Dive could be easily charged up in the late game. I mean, we have pickaxes, double turbo, so although double turbo will affect your 1 cure potential, that is worth mentioning. Ancient Star, on the other hand, says as this Pokemon is in play, it gains an ability. So the attack converts it into an ability, essentially, with the effect of Path to the Peak. So they have no abilities. It's a strange one. It's really strange. I think it fits kind of with the outpacing thing, because if you think about it, you're not going to be able to get 3 energy or 2 energy, really, for Lost Dive on your second, even maybe third turn, potentially. So having Ancient Star here as an option to use in the early game to essentially slow down your opponent and let you overtake them with Lost Dive is really interesting. I am kind of glad there's like the synergy there. Will it be very competitive? Hard to say at this point, but I do like the damage and I do like the V-Star powers, so could be really interesting. Fanfi is Adorbs, but pretty bad. And then Donphan has the attack Overspin that does 110 damage for Sun Energy. But if evolved this turn, this attack does nothing. What an awful move. So yeah, unfortunately that is pretty bad. I love the artwork though. Looks like he's in a savannah. He's also quite a chunky boy actually, 150 HP. But unfortunately Donphan ain't doing much. Binnacle, so yeah, PTO Radio will be sad. Fun reference. Anyway, moving on. Binnacle, cool artwork, bad card. Seeing a pattern here. But Baracle has an interesting ability, but it's unfortunately not going to be good enough, I think, in standard, because there's just I don't think it's I just don't think it's good enough, even on the stage 1, because if it was on a basic, it'd obviously be broken, but if it's on stage 1, it's just too slow. There's no real middle ground anymore, so it's unfortunate. Howlucha genuinely looks like it was designed for a theme deck, and theme decks are gone, so rip. Sandy Gas, Paddle Sound, so glad to see Sun and Moon Mons back in these sets. I love Paddle Sound, honestly. He's one of my favorite Sun and Moon Pokemon. Sandpit Tomb does 30 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. Don't apply weakness and resistance for bench Pokemon. So we do have Telescopic Sight to take this to 60. So we can spread 60 on these. Is it okay? I mean, in fairness, V stars are a lot less tanky compared to V maxes. Like, they have a whole less 60 HP a lot of the time. So I don't hate this move. It's just whether or not it can be consistent with Mimikyu. Maybe you play it with other spread attackers like Northern V or something. But yeah, 30 spread, not the worst, but it's also stage 1, so who knows. Stonejourner is a waste of paper. I can't believe it. Such a cool Pokemon, such cool artwork. We have the Lost Zone back, and then they go and do this. It's just awful. This reminds me of Stack Attacker though, the one that flip a coin to get tails if heads, mill a card or something. It reminds me of that, but this should have been put the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck in Veloso, because for 4 energy, that's really, really expensive just to mill 1. Drapion V has a wild style ability. That is Mew counter. It's just Mew. Yeah. Pokemon hate Mew now, as evident evidenced by Mightina and Drapion V. But this is not only a Mew counter though. It's very shallow if you think this is only a Mew counter. This does actually counter Single Strike and Rapid Strike decks as well. So this is sort of an answer to them. I mean, not really, because a lot of Rapid Strike and Single Strike decks run not Houndoom, but like Urshifu, which hits obviously the Dark type weakness, Fighting type weakness rather. So yeah, it's a little dicey. Even though Dynamic Tail is obviously really good damage output in some matchups. I still think this will be like a one-off just to get rid of Mew in the standard format, but it's also a lot better than the Vstar for some reason. So I guess we should take a look at the Vstar, because Big Bang Arm's doing 250 and then 10 less for each damage counter. These attacks, mark my words, are never played. They're never good. Even though the damage looks appealing, it's just never good. I mean, yeah, with a choice bout, you want to kill an Arceus. Who cares when they can just poke you for 50 and then all you're doing is 200? So, yeah. Your prototype Pokemon is now poisoned and paralyzed. Put 3 damage counters instead of 1. So, I guess this has like really neat synergy whereby if you can get this guy powered up, you can just want to kill a V-Star out of nowhere, but that's like all it's doing. So, pretty bad. Sandile is boring. Krokorok is kind of funky. I do like this guy. Looks like he's chilling out in Caelid, if people get that reference. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Crocodile is unfortunately potentially, I think, the worst stage 2 I've seen in a long time. Has the ability Sangang. It says when you play it to evolve or when it dies, you can discard a card from your opponent's hand. This really should have been 2 or 3 cards, because who would on earth would play a stage 2 Pokemon just to discard 1 card or 2 cards even? It's just like so bad, man. Like why? Why? Bad card. Marini is bland. No other word for it, just bland. Nice artwork, having fun, but bland. Toxapex, another Sun and Moon Pokemon, I guess, with Venom Shock doing 10 damage and then 120 more if the defending Pokemon is poisoned. This looks really bad at first. There is actually a Garbodor, funny enough, that says if you have a Stadium card in play, you can leave your opponent's active Pokemon poisoned once in your turn. So I might give this a whirl as like a Path to the Peak Temple of Sinnoh deck with like Crushing Hammers and Venom Shock doing like 130, 140 with poison, so it's getting 2 Akiros and stuff like that. Could be a pretty funky budget deck, but it'll be another deck to write down on the list of rogue decks potentially to cover, but fortunately not very good. Beldum is adorable. I feel like this is another Elden Ring reference I'm about to say here to the Borok crystals, but yeah, love the artwork on Beldum. Metang is fine. Metagross has a really unique ability actually, but the attack is subpar. So Urgent Entry says if you draw at the beginning of turn, you can just slap on the bench and draw 3. It's top entry, so it's fine. We have Rotom Foam, we have like Trekking Shoes kind of combos, we have Primate Wisdom. All of that is fine. The draw 3 is meh, maybe? Is it meh? Hard to know. I don't think it's worth it, because Empoleon is arguably a better card and Empoleon sees no play, so it's interesting. I think it'll have like maybe a niche use. I could see this being played in like a Rotom Foam build of Zacian V actually, where you fix your top deck and then you Intrepid or you use this. Because the problem I have with this card is that if its second attack was really usable and splashable, it could be a really cool attack card just to run on the one off. But 100 and the next turn doing 200 basically is pretty weak and underwhelming. I do like the 300 across 2 turns, but you aren't surviving a hit from anything really. So yeah, unfortunately, I think it's going to be too weak, but it is cool. Ferroseed and Ferrothorn are absolute bulk. We're not going to spend any time on them. Clarence Stunfisk is just there to be a joke. I mean, you just know from this artwork that he's supposed to be a joke. This is going to be another piece in the never-ending list of control that says, if your opponent has a Stadium card in play, discard it. If you do, discharge 2 energy, attach your opponent's active Pokemon. And you might be thinking, well, if opponent knows you're playing Clarence Stunfisk, why would they ever play down their own Stadium? Well, there's Path to the Peak, there's Galar Mine that can be highly disruptive, Temple of Sinnoh. So if the opponent has to play counter stadiums anyway, and then you can just kind of abuse Galarian Stunfisk's attack, and then, discard some energy and be really potent in the early game with control, or maybe even the late game, could be cool. Galarian Berserker V is bad, in a sense, bad, I think. 20 for each card in your hand. He looks like he's having fun, of course, but For each card in your hand is, I think it's just flat out worse Kadabra, so Kadabra V I should say. So yeah, pretty bad. So on to the reason why most of you probably clicked on the video is Giratina V and Vstar. So Giratina V has 220 HP, so really quite tanky boy. Has the attack, no, I said ability, but it's not. It's Abyss Seeker. It says look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You put 2 of them in your hand, and there are other 2 in the lost zone. So really nice, like thin guarantee card thing. Shred 160 is cool because it obviously goes through Miltank. And then looking at the Vstar, 280 HP, so really up there with Arceus, very tanky. Lost Impact for Grass Psychic Colors does 280, and then put 2 energy from your hand into Veloso. From your Pokemon, sorry, it's not your hand, it's a loss. It's just from your Pokemon. Wait, that's not even from Giratina, it's just your Pokemon. That's wild. Oh, that is really wild, actually. Okay, that is bonkers, actually. I did think it was from Giratina himself, but no, it's just from any of them. Wow. Okay, so this is bonkers. Star Requiem. You may only use this attack if you have 10 or more cards in the Lost Zone. So I've obviously been looking at ways to discard cards and put them in the Lost Zone throughout the video. Your opponent's active Pokemon is just knocked out. This is just an instant KO move. I think this is pretty big. Honestly, I do. Pretty wild. I don't think it's abysmal by any stretch of the imagination. I think there's like enough ways to accelerate energy. And I think there's like just like very easy ways of actually just, saying, oh, I have 10 cards in the Lost Zone now, time to blow them up. There is an item card actually we'll look out later on that, has an effect that says if you have 7 or more cards in the Lost Zone, you can search your deck for 2 different types of basic energy. So you can, like Lost Impact that way in the late game. So bonkers card, honestly. We'll have to do some testing for that, but it is bonkers. Pidgeot V is pretty bad, I think, actually. 160 at Stadium isn't awful, but you're not surviving anything, so pretty bad. Oh yeah, the ability is okay, but not much point if the attack is pretty bad. Porygon is an okay control piece, but other than that, pretty boring. Porygon 2 has Junk Data Blast that does 20 damage for each Pokemon tool card in both players' Lost Zones. So we did actually see the Rotom V earlier that did moving of the Pokemon tools from the discard to Lost Zone. So we have seen a couple of like synergetic archetypes in this set, but I think it's just pretty bad, honestly. I don't think it's doing enough damage. Porygon Z, oh yeah, and your colors type, so you don't hang anything for weakness. L. Porygon Z, one of these devolution, as I like to call them, moves, but pretty bad. Spinda is yet another spreading attack, so they are actually bringing back spread moves back into the TCG. That's kind of cool. But Hula Hula Spin, doing 10 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon, isn't going to be very good. So, yeah, doesn't do enough damage, I don't think. Lopunny is pretty bad. Buffalon is bulk. So much bulk in the set. Fletchling, again, is bulk. But it evolves into the Talonflame looked at earlier, which is fine. Also has Free Retreat, so that'll be okay. So moving on to the trainers, finally. We have Toolbox that is an energy lotto, but it's for a tool card. Just a pretty bad effect, honestly. I don't think there's like much reason to spend too much time talking about this. I think it's just pretty mediocre. Mirage Gate is absolutely broken, assuming you can get 7 cards into a Lost Zone, allowing you to accelerate 2 different basic energy, different types, and then attach them to Pokemon any way you like. So this might be how we power up amazing rares, potentially. It also is going to be like the main engine for cards like Delphox and Giratina. So obviously all of this will require testing. I don't want to say this is going to be cracked, broken, whatever, because getting cards in the Lost Zone might actually be more difficult than we think, and it might just be too clunky. But if we can pull it off, this is absolutely bonkers. Lost Sweeper, you have to put a card from your hand into the Lost Zone, and then you discard Lost Sweeper and choose a tool or a stadium and put it into the Lost Zone. So yeah. So I guess that puts 2 cards into Lost Zone, so that's going to help with this. That's pretty cool. Panic Mask, bit of a no-face reference there, I think, but prevent all damage to this Pokemon with 40 HP or less remaining. That's interesting, but I think Tri-Spell and Air Balloon are just always going to be better. Colorless Experiment says look at top 5, put 3 in hand, 2 in the Lost Zone. It could be okay, actually. I mean, you're looking at top 5, you're taking 3. No, yeah, you're taking 3, and then you're putting the other 2 in the Lost Zone. Cool synergy with like Comfrey and stuff, and Bennett, so Bennett especially, because Bennett will pick up Colorless and do it again, so yeah, actually that doesn't seem so bad in the Lost Zone builds. Lady is search your deck for 4 basic energy, so obviously in these like Charms and Flora weird Finian decks, this could be okay as a one-off maybe if you can Leminion V search it out. Thornton is pretty bananas. There's honestly so many combos to talk about with Thornton, but choose a basic Pokemon in your discard pile, switch it with one of your basic Pokemon in play. Any cards, damage counters, special conditions, turns in play, and any so turns in play included. That's pretty big. And any other effects remain on the new Pokemon. So I've already seen someone talk about an idea whereby you have a bunch of like Miltanks and Comfreys in play, and like Diancie. And then what essentially happens is you spend all those turns getting cards into the Lost Zone, and then what you can then do is use Thornton to switch from a Miltank into a Giratina Vstar, because if that Miltank has been in play for a turn, you can switch into you can switch into a Giratina V, evolve into a Vstar that same turn, right? So same turn, not a Vstar switching, but you can do it. You can evolve in the same turn. You see what I'm saying? Into a Vstar, and then pull out the Mirage Gate trainers and just get it going in one turn. Like that is bonkers. Just converting a Miltank into a Giratina Vstar is just absolutely bananas. Sorry, my throat's going. But yeah, Thornton, definitely want to keep an eye on. Fantina, it's pronounced. It's going to be just how good, depending on we can get cards in the Lost Zone. But 120 less from these is kind of absurd. Unfortunately, I don't think this is a good play in high copies of, so maybe a one of in the Giratina deck just to see if it's any good. Lost City is pretty cool. It says when a Pokemon is knocked out, put in the Lost Zone. So obviously you could run like a high count of this in the Thornton Giratina strat because all your Miltanks will be dying eventually. So yeah, it could be pretty cool. And then Gift Energy is the last thing to talk about, not this comment talking about how Moongus is a sussy backer. But Gift Energy says when this Pokemon is knocked out, you can draw until you have 7. Lucky Egg in retrospective saw no play, but this is an energy that you can just attach, so definitely worth bearing in mind. So yeah, long review. Let me know what you think down below. I think Mirage Gate is definitely a highlight for me, especially its synergy with Giratina V-Star. But yeah, let me know what you think down below. It's been Empower, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Thank you.